All right, so back at it. Another day. A little late today. Tried to get on here at 4, but just kept one of those days where things just keep piling up and you're just like, oh, let me just do this real quick. Oh, let me do that real quick. Next thing you know, you lose a half hour, but it's all good. I have I really want to work on getting a Discord set up. Now I know, the millions of you following would love to have a Discord. Just kidding. There's like a couple people, but still, I want to have a Discord set up where I can start dropping things and dropping links and helpful documents of what we're doing and what I'm working on. Specifically, the research stuff. I think that I think there was just an accident outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I think that the research stuff even could be kind of interesting for people to see. So, just interesting stuff I find, links, whatnot. But if I start populating the a Discord now, then anyone that joins in or start getting the habit, and then I can just be like, pow, 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 keep putting in links and random shit that I'm reading and things I'm interested in and whatever conversations we can come up with. Could really be helpful. So today we're getting back into the swing of things on what's it called? Getting back to the swing of things on the book. We have our Indigenous Magic book. Indigenous Magic Book 2, Indigenous Magic Book 1, coming out June 1st. So we use the Anatomy of Story. There it goes. To outline everything. And the best way to think about it is you are making a scaffolding, and then you fill in the scaffolding. You fill in the scaffolding with your words. And so very much like you are stripping. I don't know why I think of it like this, but like when I was in college, I went to school to be a chemical engineer, and the part, like one of the we didn't do it per se, but we did it like in theory, right? Like, but you have to talk about how the experiment design and implementation of clearing what's called like a porcine epithelial cells from the matrix. So pretty much you have kind of a sublayer, it's like a scaffolding, and then you clear out the pig cells, and then you seed the human cells, and then that way you can actually use that I think it was organ, I forget what it was, but you can use that tissue. Let's say tissue. You can use that tissue on humans after you seed it with human epithelial cells. So that's how I always think of this. It's like you're making the substrate, you're getting everything ready, and then when it's time, we are going to seed it with our epithelial cells. But really, it is our words. Super super nerdy, but hey man, that's how shit works for me. And I gotta do that like nerdy, because I feel like nerd is like, I always get into this. Like nerd is like anime, but there's like a geek is like, see, would a geek be anime and nerd is like video games? But then there's like, you have to admit that like someone that's math and science, that's like a dork, I guess. I don't know. It's just the things I think about. The things I think about. All right, so let's see where we're at. So we're on the visual 7 steps. We're trying to find, locate, when we have each of these important parts of the story and where they're going to occur. So the weakness or need. So this, oh shoot. Nope. Get out of here. Let me pull up my other outline, because that'll help give me some clarity. So I have my other outline on my MacBook. And you guys on TikTok? I have there's a sound that's trending that I made a video for, and they have it's like you have to pretty much you have like kind of whatever you're chilling, and then you're dancing afterwards. And so I have that sound stuck in my head. Let's see. So for the first book, visual 7 steps, weakness or need at the museum. So weakness or need, we have our weakness. Sycophant. All right, let's just identify what our weakness and need is in the first place. Weakness. This shit's all written down. Here we go. He needs to learn to trust his instincts. Needs to embrace helping other indigenous societies throughout the world. Like Wakanda learning to help black people throughout the world. Okay. And so, weakness or need, where do we show this? We can say outside, let's say in the museum. In the museum. And so, when he's in the museum, Jesus talks to Fernan in the museum and doesn't like him and doesn't want to help him because he doesn't trust the American. So again, his weakness is, let's write it down. His psychological weakness, which is how he deals with himself, is he needs to learn he doesn't trust his instincts. That's his weakness. So then what he learns at the end is to trust his instincts at the end of the story. So you always want to have something that your character is learning about themselves and about how they treat others. So psychological weakness, doesn't trust his instincts. And then moral weakness, this is how he deals with other people. He doesn't want to help other indigenous societies, I believe. So again, it's like Wakanda. Moral weakness and need. He needs to embrace helping other indigenous societies. He needs to embrace that. He needs to learn and embrace that he has a the skills of like an Indiana Jones. And he can help other societies even without his magic. So that could be a big one. I'm actually gonna bold. Oh, you have no idea how often. Oh my goodness. There we go. There you go. How often I hit something because I'm not used to a PC. So even without his magic, so this is a big one I think that we just unearthed. So I'm gonna embolden this, and then also we will go back up actually, and we'll add this to the list. Feels that he isn't enough without his magic, doesn't realize he has Indiana Jones type abilities in hunting relics. So we could almost make it look like Like his magic works really well in the Yucatan, near Chichen Itza, around Merida, but he feels like he's not enough. Which is actually not hard to write, you know? It's like that's pretty straightforward. I think anyone, anywhere, at any time, has at least felt this where you're not enough. And so it's easy in, for whatever reason you didn't practice enough, you didn't study enough, you did whatever it is. And so all you gotta do is you just turn that into how he feels when he doesn't have magic. He's like, I can't do it because I'm not enough. And so it's like that's a pretty straightforward internal battle to write. What the? Oh, Caps was on. Jesus talks to Ferdinand in the museum and doesn't want to help him because he doesn't trust the American. Ends up abandoning his gut reaction because he owes a debt to Ferdinand. So now the problem is, I would like all of this to occur in the same place. So for example, he denies Ferdinand once. So we could actually change this where this location is probably best going to be, and where we take the time to flesh out how they're feeling and write about all the internal struggles that Jesus is dealing with. The best place to do this is going to be not in the museum. It's going to be after Ferdinand, outside the police car / department. So that's when, that's when Jesus has to deal with the fact that he is, he's not trusting his instincts. And then this is one where it's like he doesn't want to necessarily go down to Peru and help, but he feels now he owes the guy who saved him from the police, he owes him that anyways, even though he doesn't feel like he's enough without his magic. And remember, if you've been here, we know that Ferdinand is the reason that he got pulled over in the first place, because Ferdinand called the police on him and gave a false report, and then he steps in to save him from the police, even though with like some, greases the guy's pocket a little bit, and then that's how he convinces Jesus to help him. All right, so the desire throughout the story. Remember, the desire, you have to make sure that at the very end of the book, he has fulfilled his desire. That's the key. So, Jesus wants to pay back his debt to Ferdinand. All right. Jesus owes Ferdinand for keeping him out of trouble with Mexican police. And so this, where he decides, so on the first one, we set the desire at the house. So this one, what story beat can we use? Where can this happen in the world? So this is where the weakness and desire comes into play. This can almost be like in the lawyer's office where they get the initial treasure map. That can definitely work well. At the lawyer's office in Lima. I hope you guys can't hear all this honking outside. This is got to be one of the noisiest days I've ever streamed before. Just literally honk after honk after honk out there. Jesus says Ferdinand for keeping out of trouble with Mexican police. Yep. This is where we'll give a little more context. After the lawyer asks Jesus, let's say Ferdinand, if Jesus is related, Jesus responds in Spanish that he's, quote, just paying back a debt and will be going back to Mexico as soon as possible. So then from there, we know what his kind of where his mindset is. And that's why it's going to be even more impactful when he decides to risk his freedom to help Chaska, who is the indigenous woman from Peru. It'll be more impactful when we see him potentially sacrifice his freedom to help her. So remember, she is the first opponent, though. So where do we see the first opponent? See her. Market chase. Do I have 2 market chases? Hold on. I think I might. I think. Oh no, maybe they were just stumbling. Walking in the market. Oh, okay, yeah, they're just walking around. Yes and no. We'll keep that. We'll keep that as how it was. All right, market chase. After Chaska, Mamani. So we first see the opponent after Fernan, Jesus, and Abilio. Exit the catacombs that host the first clue. There they chase after the other girl, the other treasure hunter, and get the clue for the next location. How does she get there? Oh, we can just say that she read it and figured it out before she left. Okay, we know the battle is going to be at Machu Picchu because it has to be at Machu Picchu. The final showdown takes place at Machu Picchu when Chaska, Jesus, and Abilio arrive and see Fernan with I want to say like police escort, but I mean I feel like it could be like military. I'm gonna say like authorities. Chaska agrees, surrenders herself, so that the condors don't get harmed, and Jesus potentially sacrifices his magic so that another society can bring back their indigenous magic. Okay. Freedom back in Merida. Back home, Jesus deals with traditional problems at work while hearing about the benefits created by the Incan magic wielders. Something like that can work. All right, let's do a little bit of research about the Quipu, because we're gonna start going into symbols, and when it's time to get into symbols, we need to have a little bit more. I need to have a little bit more information under my belt about what's going on. That should be good. A little larger than I read, but so you guys can check out what we're looking at if you want. Let's see. Quipu are recording devices fashioned from strings historically used by a number of cultures in the region of Andean South America. Consisted of cotton or camelid. Irish strings. This is camelid. Is that an alpaca? Camels, llamas, alpacas, vicuñas, and guanacos. I didn't know that they were in the same family. Camelids are even-toed ungulates classified in the order Cetartiodactyla, along with whales, pigs, deer, cattle, and antelopes. Whales are in the same order? Dude, biology is fucking trippy. Inca people use them for collecting data and keeping records, monitoring tax obligations, collecting census records, calendrical information, and for military organization. Chords stored numeric and other values encoded as knots, often in a base 10 positional system. Only a few or thousands of chords. I wonder if there's a YouTube video about this, because that might be a little bit more accessible for us. Quipu knots. Here we go. Turn down my volume.
When you work with archaeological objects, you are like entering the world of your ancestors.
Oh, so it's like a tangle of knots.
I like to think that in a way they talk to us.
Whoa, and these things are thin too.
Quipu is an account.
Man, have you guys ever like unraveled Christmas tree lights? Like this is almost like the super duper version of that. And she gets paid. That's her job at whatever museum or academic university. She just untangles these fucking knots.
Made of
That's
cotton
wild.
strings that use knots.
Like you know however they stored these things. There's no way they stored these things cleanly. Hold on, let's see what he says.
To represent numbers.
Okay.
A quipu is the accountants of life.
He seems nice.
The quipus were made in Inca times by quipu camayos.
Kipukamayos. Oh, that's a good word. I might have to write that down. Kipukamayos. Notes. Quipus made by Quipu. Oh shoot, I already forgot how to say it. Kipukamayos. Kipukamayos. Okay.
By Kipukamayos.
The Kipukamayos, the only ones who were able to read it, died and didn't pass the knowledge to the next generations.
So I need to have Kipukamayos. Kipukamayos. So the Kipukamayos are like the ones who are going to hold this ancient knowledge. So this could even be secret society led by antique stealer? Question mark. Because we could call the secret society Kipukamayaks and kind of like.
There's a
That'd
lot
be
of
like,
questions still to get answered.
Like in educational. As
My
well.
biggest hope for Incahuasi is to be able to excavate all the site. The quipus are very well preserved because the environment of the Peruvian coast is very arid, so you have a very good preservation of any organic remain.
Interesting.
This must be 600 years old, and you can see
Damn.
the preservation is very well.
600 years old, and you can it's still like clean like that. That's impressive.
You know the
Like, look, you can still see the different colors, and you can still see the. So this is actually, I'm gonna have to link this. Let's see, share, copy. I'll add this to my notes. So that way.
numbers we found in the quipus are the counts of these products.
They have been buried for 600 years, and so what we do is the conservation. That means keep them clean and straight so the analyzer can come and study them.
I think this discovery will bring a better understanding of quipus and also in how the Incas dominate and control these local populations.
Many people
Interesting.
say that because we had no writing, our culture was not developed, but we really have things like quipus that show that it was a very developed culture.
Every time is exciting because we are finding them in different contexts and in different situations and different sizes, different shapes, colors, knots, so we can have a very big
It's
data
amazing that they
of
still
these quipus
have
so we can
the,
compare them and get any kind of
Amazing they still have the different colors. Like, that's actually really cool. That's something I'm gonna
insight to
remember
see
when I write.
how to read them or how to understand them.
The first one, when you see them like really dirty spaghetti, and then at the end, they're just like, take me a picture, they're so pretty. I think the quipus are grateful.
That's a good line too. The quipus are grateful. That's what I do like about a lot of like Spanish language and people that speak Spanish. They provide, they anthropomorphize things a little bit more readily than
This
English.
is Webflow. Meet the design tool from the future.
Speaking of which, there was a
the most
podcast I
powerful
heard with,
visual.
like, it was a podcast with Tyler Cowen, and it was Irish speakers, or it was an Irishman. But just hearing the way that his language he talks, God, I wish I had written down the example because you understand why like a lot of Irish writers are super like well regarded, because even the way they talk, it's like you hear the commas where they would kind of break, and then they have these like very very unique language, and even just how they talk. And so it's like, oh man, if you guys talk like this, like imagine you sat down and wrote it. Like it just sounds so great.
So on many Kipu chords, you'll find a series of knots like this. And in many cases, these knots seem to have signified numbers. And these numbers are signified in much the same way as our own decimal system, where if I want to write the number 121, I would write the number 1, followed by a 2, followed by a 1. And this means that I have 1 in the hundreds place,
Okay.
I have 2 in the tens place, and then I have 1 in the ones place. And then that means 121 in our system of writing that number. So the Inca did the exact same thing, they just flipped it vertically. So instead of this horizontal system, we have 1 knot up in the hundreds place, we have 2 knots in the tens place, and we have 1 knot in the ones place.
I wonder if they're always
121.
10.
The one tricky thing with this is that not all of the knots are tied in the same way at different hierarchical levels. So let's talk about how we would actually tie these numbers onto a Kipu chord and how these different knot types work in that system.
First, let's make what we call a long knot in the ones place, at the bottom of the chord. Long knots could be used to signify the numbers 2 through 9 in the ones place. You simply wrap the chord around itself as many times as the number you want to signify. Here I make the number 3 by wrapping the chord 3 times around itself and then tightening the knot. Note that you can easily count the 3 now that the knot is tightened. For values in the tens place, let's pick a spot in the middle of the chord to tie our knots and distinguish from the ones place below. Instead of 3, let's turn the number on this chord into a 23. To do this, we tie 2 single knots, which are just simple overhand knots. Now our chord has the number 23 on it. 2 knots in the tens place, and 1 long knot in the ones place. What if we wanted to signify the number 123? We simply move further up the chord and tie 1 more single knot in the hundreds place to signify the number 123 overall. Make sure all of your decimal positions are well spaced so that you can tell the difference between your tens, hundreds, and thousands. Here I have about the same amount of space between my long knot 3 in the ones place, 2 single knots in the tens place, and 1 single knot in the hundreds place, to make clear that I'm signifying the number 123. If long knots only form the numbers 2 through 9 in the ones place, though, how do we make the number 1? Let's turn this number into the number 121 to find out. Note that without a knot in the ones position, our chord now has the number 120 recorded on it.
Interesting.
Zeros are simply recorded by the absence of a knot at any level in the knot hierarchy. So instead of using a long knot, I will use what is called a figure 8 knot to represent the number 1. Figure 8 knots are only used to signify the number 1. You tie them by passing the chord behind itself and through the loop you've made. Now,
Okay, and so what if we the Kipus with magic are Fibonacci's sequence? Yes. Hey Broadway, what's going on, man? Or gal, whatever. What's going on, person? No, we it's so the knots are part of what's called the Incan Kipu, and so on here we have the string and then the knots, and this is how they communicated. And so I'm trying to right now. I'm just researching if they were used if they were used ever for like for letters, or if it was just numbers based. So I was just seeing if I could find a YouTube video about that. The Kipus were actively destroyed. Yeah, that sounds about right. Quipu is the Spanish spelling and the most common spelling in English. Quipu, the word for knot in Cusco Quechua. Okay, so is it only numbers though? Some of the knots, as well as other features such as color, are thought to represent non-numeric information which has not been deciphered. Interesting. So in theory, I could kind of make this up. It is generally thought that the system did not include phonetic symbols analogous to letters of the alphabet. However, Gary Urton has suggested that Quipus use a binary system which could record phonological or logographic data. Quipus decode to match census data. Okay. Quipus are not actually a representative language. Yeah, so this seems like the kind of the prevailing wisdom among the scholars is that there's no phonetic components of Quipus of the knots. It's much more has to do with numbers. Okay, so we can play with that. Like I said, if it's the Fibonacci sequence, then that could almost give rise to where the magic came from in the first place. That could like the special numbers charged the, what do I want to call it, the Quipu, and created Incan magic that Pizarro tried to suppress. All right. So I wonder what other symbol. Whoa, that's a weird. Hey, Anderson Cooper. What's up, buddy? So for one of our symbols, I want a story symbol. So let's go ahead and flip to the next section of our book, The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. And then we'll start filling in the next section. Is there a single symbol that expresses the premise, key story to a central theme and overall structure of your story? So we'll go ahead and we can look designing principle. All right, so we got all this guy right here. Let's take this on down. So this is going to be tough because the symbol lines are the symbol line, magical kingdom, hidden in plain sight among Peru's nature. And then the story symbol itself, not a heading. The story symbol is the Quipu. Originally tangled and dirty, but is the Quipu in the chest. Originally tangled and dirty, but holding great power when organized and placed flat. Go ahead. I will never understand how it chooses the font to use. I've told this thing a million times to use Palatino. All right, symbolic characters. So Chaska for sure. Amani, indigenous woman from Peru. She's related to Fernan Rivera. She's related to Fernan Rivera. Although the reader doesn't find out until later. There's definitely God symbolism in Jesus and Fernan, but different aspects. So Jesus, so the God symbolism of this is going to be that Jesus sacrifices himself so he can help others, giving helpful God. And then Fernan is a wrathful God, wanting power and to punish those who don't agree with him. Okay. Let's see here. We also see symbolism in the tension between characters. There's South American versus United States, Spanish versus indigenous, and oh, there was another one. Hold on, there's one more. So the more I can kind of keep these front of mind and remember them, the easier it's going to be to type out words and type out scenes that are going to have conflict in them just because of the way people are. Is it in the moral argument? No, it's character development. Ancient traditions. Oh yeah, so here we see his desire, where his desire grew up. That's straight out of Marvel. Believes ancient traditions are to serve him for profit and personal gain. Oh yeah, it was in here. Oh, magic versus non-magic. Duh. It's like in Harry Potter. So what? There's symbolism in those three groups. Oh, okay, and the condor Chaska's control of the control of the condor symbolizes the bond between indigenous and nature, specifically animals. We see this with the snakes, rats, and panther as well. Okay, so Chaska is one of the main antagonists through the early part of the story. Jesus and Ferdinand, let's say not even Jesus, Chaska and Ferdinand represent the battle between indigenous spiritual practices and organized religion. The cousins don't agree on anything and get upset with each other when looking for the correct path forward with regards to the relics and the power and their magic power. What? Oh, there it is. I feel like there's some more symbols we could probably add in here, but not sure what the move would be on those. We'll just have to wait until it starts. I mean, even like the symbolic characters, but even what holds the different treasures. So, for example, they find the Kipu in a treasure chest, and the treasure chest also has associated symbols on it. So it could be something along those lines. Magical kingdom hidden in plain sight among Peru's nature and markets. Assuming markets are like the jungle. Chest containing relics also has symbols, which leads to discovery of secret society. And then there's also the antique in the market that charges the Kipu for good. Maybe they only work at night. Not for good. That sounds like it's like there's good and bad. I meant like permanently. Antique in the market that charges Kipu permanently. Is unassuming and like the chalice in Indiana Jones. Represents the, I'm gonna say, humble nature of the Incan magic. The humble, hidden in plain sight. Okay. Character type. Consider connecting one or more of your characters to a character type, especially gods, animals, or machines. Well, Jesus is a stand-in for one of the Mayan twins that descended into the underworld. And what did they do again? I should know this. The Hero Twins. Maya Hero Twins. Oh, Xbalanque. Oh, the twins defeated Xibalba. Xibalba is the underworld, and so the Xibalbans no longer receive offerings from the people who walked on earth above. So, in Mayan mythology, Unapu and Xbalanque which is Jesus, left the underworld and continued into the sky, becoming the sun and the moon. So Jesus can become the moon. Okay, and then what other symbolic character change? Character type. Casca. Represents femininity. Feminine. Did I miss an N? Yeah. Okay. Symbolic character change. Jesus goes from an unwilling / timid leader to a decisive king helping lead back to glory. He starts the story begins with him in enslaved. Say, what's the opposite of freedom? Opposite of freedom. I'll say in captivity. I don't like in slavery. So the book I'm using, they always say like he goes from slavery to greater slavery to freedom, but like it's not really slavery, right? It's like just kind of slavery just sounds like a very drastic word. Captivity. I'll say in captivity, or I'll say stuck. At the mercy the superiors, then descends into greater captivity when he becomes indebted to Fernand before finally earning his freedom through helping the Incan magic return for Peru's indigenous population. Oh great, neighbor's dog came back. Let's see if my dog freaks out. Oh, she's staring. Her ears are perked. Surprised she didn't bark though. Normally she just goes freaking crazy. Okay, cool. All right, let's see if we can find another article, another quick video to watch about the knots, because it still feels like there's some more information I don't know about them.
Well, it's been a great weekend at Archaeosoup. Am I busy at the moment? There's just stuff everywhere for, and therefore some of this to remind paper have a back. Plus, it's the time in the has.
Is this all memes? It's all stock footage?
When the Spanish arrived in 1533, things began to change.
It is.
I'm the last person to talk about linguistics, but I couldn't resist doing a video some time ago exploring the idea of creating a whole new language system. Perhaps one based on smells? Or tying shoelaces. Seems notes made from knots is not to be sniffed at after all. Since this article, printed in a widely respected science magazine, suggests that a highly sophisticated civilization, the Incas, were using a language based on knots many moons ago. I'm absolutely fascinated with this serendipitous process.
Might be more of a reading it on my own type of thing, to be honest with you. All right, symbolic theme. Look for a symbol that can encapsulate the main theme of your story. Let's see, the Quipu, the recovered Quipu represents the stolen knowledge and culture of the Incas that was lost during the Spanish conquest. Further, they symbolize the power of nature and healing that was lost over the years as the world becomes more technologically driven. And then later, Kipu represent the control some people have the desire for control and power that some people have plus they represent the unifying force that ties together the indigenous Incan community. All right. So the symbolic world. All right, so Machu Picchu represents the intersection, the ideal between let's say like the ideal intersection between human expansion and nature. Identifies the numbers on the Kipu, identifies the great pains the Incan Empire took when dealing with the logistics of a huge, vast empire, emphasizing the importance placed on individual well-being as an integral part of the community's, society's well-being. Let's say continued function. The museums. The museum in the beginning of the story represents the effective unification of magic in a modern setting after Jesus brought back Mayan for every Maya in the Yucatan. The secret society revealed by, what's it called? What's his face? By the antique dealer. I'm gonna call him Hugo. Shit, what was his last name? I already had a character name picked out and I literally forgot it already. Budge. Alright. Let's go find a popular Peruvian name. Popular Cusco last name. I know we'll have I'll say popular Peru last name. Cause yeah, I'll say Aguilar. Let me add him to my character list. A little wise old man action. The secret society represents the it's not a dichotomy. Let's say tension between maintaining an indigenous identity while striving for inclusion in an increasingly technological world. What else could we do for symbolic world? That should be good. Symbolic objects. Okay, the Kipu. No. Not a heading. No style. Kipu, which is the ancient relic. Chests where Kipu are held contains its own symbols as well. Let's see. Oh, you know what we could do? We can include Abilio's crystals and tarot. And really what would actually show some good symbolism is would be here. Symbolic character change. Jesus has to decide what to call himself as a practitioner of magic. Is he a warlock, a brujo, a wizard, And you guys have any questions? Want to know about anything? Or have anything to add about that you know about Peruvian society, indigenous society, anything? Or anything you think I should add I could add in as well? I am all ears. Yep, Jesus, this is still the same. Jesus' shadow form is a direct symbol of how powerful he is. Balaam. Additionally, Balaam's weak shadow shows how much their magic is affected in a different land. And then obviously status symbols. Betraying relative wealth. Okay. All right, so that's a good point. That's a good stopping point right there. But what I want to do and kind of transition here, I'll show you. I'll show you real quick. So on Reddit, there is there's a page of writing prompts, and so I was thinking about going through one of these. Holy crap! Okay, so here's a writing prompt. You're an employee at an escape room. The group you're watching has been particularly stupid this time, but you never expected them to try and sacrifice their friend for assistance from the devil. Holy shit. That seems like shit gets hairy fast. But what's crazy is I literally was just watching TikTok earlier, and there is a someone made this a TikTok out of this. Like it's I forget the sound, but pretty much it's, they show a picture of their face. They're like, when you're an employee at an escape room, and then they show the closed camera or the camera inside, and then on the table is one of their friends, and then around them are like the people, like his friends, and they're chanting and shit. So it's actually really wild that this is a writing prompt. So, writing prompt. For two reasons unknown, two parallel universes with somewhat similar timelines have collided. The end result is an Earth where there's duplicates of most people in the world. Interesting. Instead of summoning a bright-eyed, naive, dense... Instead of summoning a bright-eyed, naive, dense teen, the summoning ritual has brought forth an exhausted 45-year-old father of four who is more concerned about explaining his absence to his wife and boss than the prospect of adventure. Interesting one. You are a necromancer's apprentice. One of your most important jobs is holding down the revived bodies in their first moments alive again while they scream and beg to go back. Like that. So when they do this, I think people will they write about it, and then they put this on here in the little short story. Definitely would be a good, that would be a good writing prompt. All right, let's go over this before we call it a day. The symbolic objects are the quipu, the chest, Abelios crystals, and tarot. The shadow form is, yeah, that's a symbolic object. Symbolic world. Is there anything else? Anywhere else? I mean, okay, so we could say the cliffs on the Andean mountains. They're dangerous for our heroes, but in the past, the Inca had no problem or issues scaling the heights and depositing the treasure chest. Somewhere in here we could also put in the what's it called? The elevation, because the elevation in Merida, where Jesus is from, $33 feet. Okay, and then the elevation in Cusco is 11,200 feet. So 11,000 feet. So that's one thing that we can definitely add in. I don't know where I would add that though. Maybe just in the story, the like story beats. Look what the incarnate targets Fernan. Walking in the market, Jesus recognizes symbol from the chest. No, he needs to feel. It's not really a moral. I mean, I guess it's like story world stuff, which would be. It was in the right area for it, but just I don't know where. Story world and online, value opposition, visual option, maybe with technology. Yeah, so I guess it'd be land, maybe with technology. Elevation difference. Most noticed by Abilio. Merida is 33 feet above sea level. So damn near on sea level. Cusco is 11,200 feet above sea level. And then Machu Picchu is 2,400 meters. I don't know what the fuck that means. 7,800 about. I'll call it 7,900 feet. Jesus notices once Abilio says something, but he wasn't worried about it before. All right. So what else do? Let's Look up. Here we go. The Catholic mission in the Inca Empire lacked responsible church leadership. Book announcement. What book? The Catholic mission in the former Inca Empire lacked responsible and effective church leadership. The image of the missionaries as having been principally responsible for the failure of the Catholic mission in Peru in the 16th and 17th centuries is incorrect. The church leadership also bore a large part of the responsibility, a new thesis in history from the University of Gothenburg shows. The personal reputation and religious zeal of a few ecclesiastical leaders might have been excellent, but the ability of the leadership as a whole to lead the gigantic missionary project in the former Inca Empire proved inadequate. Researchers have traditionally depicted the mission in Peru as a matter between missionaries and the indigenous population. The priests in the field have generally been portrayed as being solely responsible for the mission's problems, while the indigenous population has been depicted as rather passive objects of the care and mission of the Spanish state. The role of the church leadership has in general not been scrutinized. However, in my view, the church, i.e. its leaders, had a crucial bearing on the results of the mission, says the author of the thesis, Bertil Lundberg. It is easy to gain the impression that the church is one with its representatives out in the field, in the active work of the mission. Christianizing the indigenous inhabitants of Peru was the church's project, and the church as an institution decided on strategies, controlled economic and personal resources, and consequently decided how the mission developed. The missionaries were the tools for the implementation of decisions taken by their bishops and prelates. Okay. While the missionaries' assignment was formulated and dictated by the church, the same church criticized its own missionaries when the poor performance of the missionary project was debated. The leadership simply distanced itself from the way the missionaries accomplished their assignment and did not take any share of the responsibility. In the records of church meetings I've studied, there's a notable absence of internal criticism among the church's leadership. Instead, the problems that arose were attributed to the behavior of the priests in the field and, to some extent, to the religious leaders of the indigenous population. In a way, one can understand the lack of criticism. It is not necessarily routine practice for any organization to exercise and disclose painful internal self-criticism, says Lundberg. On the other hand, it is more difficult to understand the lack of interest or unwillingness of later research to focus attention on the church leadership and its role in and responsibility for the mission. Researchers have instead glorified church leaders and raised them above the criticism that has been leveled at others. The mission in Peru was a project on a scale the Western Church had not previously faced, and it did not succeed in attaining the goals that had been set either. A few among the Andean indigenous populations were turned into true believers in Catholicism. The efforts of the Catholic Church to Christianize the Indians failed, a fact recognized by the Peruvian Church in the early part of the 17th century. This failure is the actual foundation on which the analysis should be based. Only then should we try to understand the roles played by various parties, especially the Church as an institution and its powerful leadership. Interesting. So it's all every single one. I searched for Catholic missionary Incan, and they're all this one thesis in Gothenburg. What's University of Gothenburg? Where is that? Gothenburg in Sweden. Let's look up Catholic Church Inca. Oh, not Catholic Church in California. Oh, it's still showing that. Odd in Peru. Oh, the oldest churches in Peru were built on top of earlier Inca temples. How long is this? 7?
Construction. It looks like this is basically perfectly east-west, which means that it obviously had something as well to do with sunrise, and in fact, megalithic pre-Inca, which is called Coricancha down that way.
Hidden Inca tours. Seems like a bit of a reach. Oh, here we go. Finally, some good it looks like a reasonable source. Nope. That was gonna be better than that. What's up, Zebra? I'm just looking up the history of the Catholic Church in the Inca Empire. I'm gonna kind of see if there's more to the colonization efforts of the Spanish. So, for example, in the Yucatan Peninsula, the Spanish conquistadors and the landowners were a large part of it. But on the other side, like it was like a trifecta, a trinity: Mayan, landowners, and then Catholic Church. And so I'm wondering if they had the same history. But there really doesn't seem to be many scholarly articles about it. 1500s Catholic Church, Peru. I mean, really, just look up the Inca Spanish conquest Inca. Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire. Here we go. Let's see. Look up Catholic. See, there's only one mention of Catholicism. That's where it's like, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, they had, so it looks like there was some more guerrilla fighting. So it looks like Pizarro, I think, toppled Atahualpa in 1521. And then after that, there was guerrilla fighting. Or no, rebellion from the indigenous population until 1572. They killed Pizarro in 1540. Oh, they killed Pizarro. Good for them. I wonder how they got him. See how he got. So Pizarro got killed by a rival. So it wasn't Almagro. That. Okay. So it looks like there was 2 conquistadors who were fighting over control of the Incan Empire, and so that could actually explain why there really wasn't much of a Catholic presence. I'm gonna have to read about these. So we're gonna read about Francisco Pizarro later. We'll read about Pizarro. We'll read about Almagro, or I think his name was Almagro. Almagro. And we will read about Almagro II, who actually ended up being it was the Almagro II's supporters that actually killed Pizarro. So this will all play into the story at some point. But yeah. All right. Let me take a quick break. 10 minutes or so. 5 minutes. Get some water. Give my dog a couple pets. She's snoozing right behind me. And then I'll be back, probably hopping on Destiny. BRB.